Hey, this is Craig Riggs from Kind and Sasquatch, and you're listening to the Heavy Galaxy Show. Rock on.
All right, the Heavy Galaxy Show. Matt and John, we're back here with another episode here on this 4th of July week, man. And joining us today, we got a gentleman who's got to be one of the, if not the hardest working individuals in the heavy rock scene. You know him as lead singer for Austin Heavyweight's High Desert Queen. And he's also the founder and main man in charge of RIPPLEFEST Texas, which is, of course, one of the biggest festivals here in the United States. We've got Mr. Ryan Garney with us. What's up, Ryan? Great to see you, man. How are you?
What's up, guys? Matt, John, it's a pleasure to be here.
Yeah,
I know
Ryan,
Matt, you and I have
good
talked
to see
before. I'm glad to have you and John involved here. It's gonna be great.
Absolutely, man. Yeah, no, great talking to you again, Ryan. Absolutely, man. Well, dude, let's speaking of I was just checking out, like I said, before we came on here, the social media page, and we talked a little bit about it before here. You guys are just getting ready, close to being ready to wrap up the follow-up to the stellar debut there, Secrets of the Black Moon, man. So talk a little bit about what's going on in the studio, how close you guys coming out, and what's the plan for the new record?
Yeah, we are very, very excited about the new record, as we should be. But we just did a tour for 6 weeks and played 34 shows in 36 days. So we felt pretty locked in. And as soon as we got home, we relaxed for a few days, kind of got away from each other for a little bit. 6 weeks in the van's a long time.
Oh, yeah.
And then we still loved each other, but took a breath and then got right back, then went right into the studio. And we had set out some pretty lofty goals. So we recorded this record at an incredible studio here in Wimberley, Texas. It's a small town just kind of north of Austin. And it's where our drummer, Phil Hook, does a lot of session work, and he works there. So he's got a good connection there, and 37 acres, beautiful countryside, relaxing on a river, just nice. Beautiful studio. But we went and we vowed to not record anything to a click track, no punch-ins, recording it live like all the old school people that we admired did back in the day. And so all our music, for the most part, is tracked. We did that in about 6 days. I got to go back and overdub some vocals, and we'll probably overdub a few guitars here and there and maybe add some textures. But for the most part, it's very close to being finished, and we are very excited because we've been playing some of these songs live for a while, but we also got in there, and I think we've been playing the same songs for so long with each other to get them ready for the studio and for tour that I don't think we've had a chance to get creative. And then we were in this environment that was so comfortable and so relaxing, and then we've got a good idea of how each other play. We ended up writing 3 songs from scratch, like in 2 days. So we're really, really excited.
Fantastic, man. Well, yeah. Well, you just mentioned the Smoke and Dust tour with the mighty Fatso Jetson and the Rubber Snake Charmers, of course, Mario Lali's band. 34 shows in 36 days, man. That's not something that a lot of underground rock bands tend to do. That's something you hear like Metallica or someone doing back in the day. You know what I mean? That's like major label, like Industry Machine type of stuff, man. But I mean, so go ahead, man. Talk about that, the experience of playing that many shows in that many days. And it's a great thing that you guys still love each other, because that could definitely do some damage if, Yeah, go ahead and talk about that.
I think that's what we kind of knew. We're like, all right, this is going to make or break us, right? So we're going to learn a lot about each other in this van. But there couldn't have been a better group of people to tour with as well. And it kind of just all came about. I had the pleasure of, putting together RIPPLEFest Texas and getting Mario with Fatso Jetson last year at the Rubber State Charmers. And we kind of developed a friendship. And then he asked me if Hyders of Queen would be interested in playing some shows with him on last October out on the West Coast. And we did that. And it's almost like he was testing out, I feel like, because he's the man. His mind's always moving, always thinking. And he's like, hey, we mixed well together. We got along. And we kind of started chatting about summer plans. And I'd already had about 3 weeks booked for just a Hyders at Queen tour. And he was eager to get back. And he's like, what if Fatso Jetson came? And I was like, absolutely. I mean, he's one of my heroes, so I'm not about to tell him no. And of course, they have a lot more clout than we do over there. So it was a good optics for Hyders at Queen as well. And it ended up being just an absolutely amazing tour. I mean, obviously it's exhausting. There were times where we're like, what the fuck are we doing? There's times, but there's always those moments, but then we're pretty good about right after we're thinking that, like, dude, we're doing something a lot of people wish they could, or like, man, we're about to go play a small town in Italy. I'm just from a small town in Texas. I never thought I'd be doing this, So it was really cool to kind of keep that perspective. And we were able to do that. But I'll tell you what, guys like the Fatso Jetson boys, they help you keep that perspective because they've done it all. They've gone big shows, small shows. They've toured with Queens of the Stone Age and all kinds of massive bands. Tony from the drummer who put drums for them in All Souls, he's gone on tours with Tool, and it's just like he's done big and small tours, and so it's interesting to hear. We're just picking their brains, the whole time, and hearing them tell war stories of all the touring they've done, and it was awesome. And we had Sean Wheeler in the van, and if you know anything about Sean Wheeler, there's never a dull moment. So yeah. And if I could just keep a tape recorder on at all times to hear some of the stories that he told, that man's a fucking trip. I love it. But like I said, it was awesome, so amazing. We had some really cool highlights where Desert Fest London was right out of the gate. Was amazing, and we played this show. Obviously, we played, and then Fatso and Jetson played the same day. But Mario got asked to fill in, so they had Somali Yacht Club had to cancel. They unfortunately couldn't get out of Ukraine for obvious reasons, and they asked Mario. They had just got done. The Desert Scene people just got done seeing Heavy Psych, Joshua Tree, and they got to see like Fatso Jetson do the Rubber State Charmers thing and everything. And they're like, hey, Mario, why don't we do this like desert jam session? And we got to be involved. And it was called Legends of the Desert, which we have no business being considered a legend. We've been around for like 2 years, but it was cool to be associated with that. And we improv'd with like our whole band got up there and improv'd with, the Fatso Jetson guys with Wheeler doing some gnarly spoken vocals and me singing some stuff. There's some stuff where it got really trippy. It was awesome, man. Like some once in a lifetime kind of thing. So, I mean,
awesome.
The whole tour was just absolutely amazing.
Hey, Ryan, you were talking earlier about the recording. So how many tracks are you guys aiming for the sometime or another album?
So we went in with 5 songs we knew start to finish. We're going to go record with 3 in the bag that we were like, hey, we'll go work out the kinks on these songs when we're in the studio. We recorded before we even recorded those 5. We wrote 3 new songs that we didn't even know. Right. So we still have the 5. So we have 8 in the bag. Right now with other ideas that if we were to go back in, we could probably go right and record the other 3 that we have, but we've already got more than enough music as it is for vinyl restraints and things. So there's gonna be some decision making to be made, but we've got a lot of good. We're very proud of the amount of music we have right now, and then We are looking to try to get this out early to maybe spring 2024.
Yeah. How many tracks?
At least 8.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
All right, let's talk about that tour. I followed along for the ride a little bit and watched your happenings every day. Checked in with you quite a bit. Tell me a little bit about what was the kind of the most unique place you played, first off?
Okay. That would be a tough one because we played several incredibly unique venues, but I will say one that stands out. There's 2 that stand out, and they're both in Italy, but one that was really, really cool. There's 3 that stand out, all 3 in Italy. We played a Fire in the Woods. It was called Fire in the Woods. It was in a small farm town in Italy that literally was in the forest where it was all DIY kind of stuff. Man, we got there early and they're setting up the stages and we got to stay like next door. There was like a couple cabins they put us in. It was really, really cool. But it was fire. They had a big campfire. They had some generators out there basically and running extension cords to these nice people down the road. And there was like 8 bands or something that night. Oh, it was insane, man.
A desert generator party in the
rad
woods.
Because that's what we were talking about Mario. I go, dude, Mario, he's like, yeah, man, this is like back home, just with a lot more trees. So it was really, really unique for sure.
And you really thought, the first half of the tour was very active and big as far as the crowds, right? I mean, you start off with London Desert Fest. I mean,
very big.
How many people were in that room? I mean, Desert Fest London, I really was hoping to be there this year. A couple things didn't go my way, we'll say, but man, I got to make it there. But tell me a little bit about Desert Fest for us.
Man, both of them that we played, London and Berlin, were insane. First shot of the gate was London. We played the Blackheart, which we've played before last year when we did our first ever overseas tour. And that room holds 200, and there might have been 250 in there. And we didn't know because we were obviously on stage. And all I know is on stage, we were like, I can't breathe. There was just no oxygen in that room. It was so hot. So we're like, man, this feels like Texas. All right, this is what we can do this. It's so hot, so humid. But we kept hearing over and over when people would be like, oh, hi, Desert Queen. We missed you. We were like waiting, what they call the queue, the line. We're waiting in the queue. There was a line all the way down. It's upstairs, all the way down the stairs and out the front of this bar and into the alleyway that people were like waiting. And when 2 people would come out, 2 people would go in, which was super humbling to hear. It also was like, well, shit, man, I wish you could have seen us,
Right.
But it was really cool to hear a lot of stories like that. And then the show we played the next night, the Desert Jam session with Fatso Jetson. That cap was, I think, 500, and that room was completely full. And then, and that was right out of the gate. And we were joking that like, man, this tour is going to be unreal, And then we play a Monday night in a small town called Bournemouth. That the cap was only, like 90 people, but there was like 50 people there. We're like, you know what? This is what keeps you humble. This is why this is great. This is life on the road, the ebbs and flows. Right. And then Desert Fest Berlin was probably our biggest show. We played the second stage, but I think they told us the cap was 850. And there was people all the way like crushed up to the front, all the way to the back. And, we're just getting going, man. And for us, that was so awesome. That was super cool. But I remember my one complaint on Desert Fest Berlin was that, any festival that overlaps, I always complain about, right? But they only had 2 stages, and they chose to have us overlap with Fatso Jetson, our touring
Ah,
We're like, come on, man.
Wow.
But I remember being like worried, well, people are going to go leave and watch Fatso Jetson, but rightfully so. I mean, they're freaking legends, dude.
Yeah.
They hadn't been over there in like 4 or 5 years. So I was like, I get it. But I remember like constantly knowing towards the last couple songs, I'm like, dude, this room is still completely full. So that was, and my first instinct is like, oh man, that sucks for Fatso. But then we get off stage, we're like, oh, we just see like hundreds and people coming out of the Fatso Jetson. They apparently had like 1,500 people on there. So that was an awesome festival for sure. Those Desert Fest shows, man, they do a really good job with them for sure. Other than the overlapping and booking us with our touring mates, the promoting and the people go. Like people are going to show up and show out. So it's awesome.
That's awesome.
It's Reese has been at it, and he's really just an amazing part of that scene over there. And obviously he's got something going on in New York as well with interesting timing. It's just within a week of you.
Not by design.
Jesus, I know. Fuck. That's a little tricky for some of us. I will be at RIPPLEFest. Awesome. Don't think I'll be getting over to New York because I'll be going to SoCal Heavy Jam the week after you. Too. Yeah, just a quick one-day thing. When you go over there, tell us a little bit about when you're in Europe at these shows, even the smaller ones, versus, ones over here in the States. Give us some, not only comparisons, but maybe even more contrast to it. And what I mean is fan interaction, the good, the bad, and the ugly, and the similar.
Well, the good is that people definitely show up, no matter what night of the week. There's definitely in Europe, especially, we did the UK and Europe. In Europe, especially, there's like a scene for heavy music, heavy rock and roll, heavy metal. They're gonna go. Like that's like what they do. It reminds me of like what it used to be back here, maybe in the 90s and maybe early 2000s. We're like, hey man, what are you doing? I don't know. Let's go to this bar because a band's playing. Don't know who, but let's go. That kind of thing. And there is a bit of there's a lot of intrigue and we're lucky, being from the States, that when we're over there, like that's a thing. People are like, man, we just knew you were from Texas, so we came to check you out. And so that was really, really cool that happens. We kept hearing that repeatedly. And another good thing is those people, like, if you impress them, they come back. Because we did that quick tour last year. We just kind of like, hey, let's just do it so we can say we did. Pretty much what we did last year at the UK and Germany and Netherlands. And we saw so many of the same people, which was so cool. Like wearing like our tour shirt from last year, coming to the show and stuff. It was really cool. That was very humbling. Yeah. That's definitely the good. The bad is that it's extremely expensive over there. So UK and is like a nightmare gas wise. I mean, it starts, you pay by the liter, it starts equating to be like $8. I mean, well, maybe California prices, I guess, gas wise, sorry, Matt, but
yeah,
trust
me, I know, I feel it.
It's actually,
it's not that bad. Yeah. It's not that bad compared, believe it or not. I mean, when I was in Europe, which was decades ago, I was flabbergasted at their prices. It was like, whoa.
Yeah,
wow.
Gas is very, very expensive. So touring, we've even seen it from last year to this year. I mean, come on, we know the cost of everything is gone up everywhere, but we definitely noticed it in our expenses when we were there this year. And of course, going over for a lot longer, you definited notice it. But that was kind of one of the big things that I'm really glad we kind of listened to Mario on was we did 34 shows, 36 days. And the only reason we had the 2 days off is because we had to take a night ferry because there's just no way to get from UK to the Netherlands without taking a day. And then we had another one because we were kind of worried about his experience of getting into Switzerland. You have to pay a tax on every single thing you have there, and merch wise and stuff. And it's a hassle getting into Switzerland. We learned that. But the reason why we did only the 2 days off is because you don't have a show, you lose money. And so we learned that pretty quick because it's so expensive. And one of the other good things about playing over there in Germany and places like that is they give you housing. It could be, it might be terrible. One venue, the housing was cots literally in the bar. So, but I mean, it's not paying for a hotel. You know?
I hope they pay for your drinks. So you get free drinks.
Yeah,
Open
bar all night.
we had heard from our buds a little trick about this one, Hippie Death Cult that played the same venue the year before, and they we played that venue. It's just this weird like castle looking thing. It's a castle, but it wasn't built like in castle. It was still built like in the 1800s, but not castle times. It was like a compound for military. But they told us a trick, like, yeah, sleeping conditions were rough because you're literally in a cot on like the bar floor, but the bar is still open. So
all right, well, that's the trade-off then, right? Yeah, exactly.
Get up and you can drink till you fall asleep.
Man.
But so that's another perk, right, of Germany and a lot of Europe is they give you accommodations to stay.
Yeah,
good and bad. Some good, some bad, right?
I've heard, hospitality certainly is such a different. I mean, that's a word that when European bands look to come over here, they always utilize hospitality.
Yeah.
And
it's a difference.
I always hate to disappoint them. I'm like, over here, you're not getting hotel rooms. And, I mean, you might get hotel rooms set up for a festival, but, for a regular tour, you're not getting that, and a deli tray or whatever the fuck, you're going to. In some places, you're going to get some beer tickets and have fun. I'm lucky enough. Some of my shows, at when I do my Counts Vamped, I get a little bit of a bar tab for each band. And American bands are like, oh, this is fucking awesome. You know what I mean? They got to throw a waitress even
because you don't get that everywhere.
And so. And what's also different, and tell me what you think of the hotel rooms over there versus at the States.
Tiny. One word, tiny. And I had the privilege of my roommate was Phil, the drummer, and he's 6'4", and there was not a bed he fit on at all.
Man.
But we joked that we would have separate beds most of the time.
Yeah,
they put them
right next to each other.
Oh, jeez, wow.
because if they're not there's no room for them to go anywhere. Because if you put them aside, then there's no place to put your bags. It's tiny. It's different over there. I mean, they're not all like that.
I know
the ones they're giving us for free. Yeah, they're like that.
Yeah,
we're gonna have to sell a lot more records to get a different hotel. But
I've had my European experience. Can't remember if it was in Florence, Italy. I go into the bathroom, I'm like, where do I shower? And I kind of look over. I'm like, what the? I go, there was a shower spigot on the wall, but there was nowhere to get in. And then I'm like, oh, there's a curtain. It literally was part of the floor with like a drain at the edge. It's very, very.
We did several of those, and I one of my favorite analogy of one of those was we played a festival. Well, it was Desert Fest London, and they put us up in this hostel that we joked was like a prison because there were 6. The room was smaller than my dorm that I had in college, and there were 6 beds in it, like bunks, and the bathroom was like there's a toilet and a shower head like you just described, and there's a shower curtain. But we hadn't been there yet. But we ran into some friends that we play with in Sweden, Galpa, and Emma from Galpa, the singer. She's like, "Oh, have you been to the hostel yet?" We're like, "No." She's like, "It's interesting. When you take a shower, it's like you're being hugged by a ghost because that shower curtain is just like attached to your body. There's no way to like get away from it. It's like constantly on you, and you don't know if it's clean. You're just like, God. So you just start you just move the curtain and just let the water get everywhere because you just don't want the curtain to touch you anymore.
Yeah.
So,
Oh, man.
the So these are the ugly. You mentioned the good, bad, and ugly. This is the ugly, right?
Yeah.
The stuff like this.
Yeah.
And what about merch sales? And I know I almost feel like I could have wrote a journal of some of the the daily stuff that you and me would kind of have a quick chat on. How was the merch sales? And were there times where there were shows that were, quite frankly, pretty disappointing crowd-wise, merch sale-wise, where you had to chalk it up and go, win some, lose some?
Yeah, it's interesting over there because, like in the UK, we had good crowds in the UK every show we played, and that was great. But the merch sales in the UK were off the charts. Like I'm like, man, we're gonna be in really good shape, and we're definitely gonna sell out of everything we have. This is great. And same thing happened last year in the UK. So we're like, this is great. Got to Europe, same crowds, definitely not selling as much merch. And you start being reflective as to why. And when you play in Slovenia and Czech Republic or even Italy, they're not the wealthiest of countries right now, for unfortunate reasons. And so it just kind of humbles you a little bit, like, man, we had people here, but we didn't sell any merch, and but you had to respect because people were still buying.
Yeah.
But it'd be like, hey, it's either you or Fatso Jetson, right? And so we both of us were like splitting merch, there'd be times where they'd buy theirs or buy ours or something. So it was fine. We ended up doing well on merch. I'd still say as on an average, we probably did better than what we would have here, maybe. It just depends. I mean, it really depends. I know when you look at the people to merch sold ratio, it's all disproportionate over there. Because there'd be times when we would joke. We'd play a show in front of a full house, and I was like, guys, I think we sold like 3 shirts. It's all we sold.
Wow.
And then we had like a couple shows. We really only had, and I think you and I were talking about this during the tour, John. We only had a few shows that quote unquote flopped. We're just it was like Tuesday night in a small village, in Italy or something.
Yeah.
And we'd have like 30 people, which still I'm happy with, 30 people there.
Sometimes.
But then we'd sell like 10 shirts. It just wouldn't make sense.
Yeah.
But like you mentioned, I mean, the good thing is like when you guys go back over there, like you said, I mean, we hear this all the time from all these bands that go over there. Once they're fans for life. Yeah. And so they're always going to come out and see you no matter what. And so I think, it'll just, I think, keep getting better each time you go, right? Every time you go over there, it'll just keep growing,
That's what you hope for. I mean, that's what, our buds in Sasquatch, they preach that their rule of thumb was 3. They're like, and Mario has the same rule of 3, where it's like, hey, first year, you're probably going to lose your ass. Second year, if you break even, you did good. And then all of a sudden, for no reason, you don't do anything different. That third time, just people are there. So we've been fortunate because we kind of jumped the curve, I guess, a little bit because we went over with Fatso Jetson this year. And that clearly helped our fans because people there was people like coming out of the woodwork to see Fatso Jetson, bringing like 7 vinyls that they bought 10 years ago to get signed. So they have some true diehards, and there's some true Sean Wheeler diehards bringing like throw rag DVD albums for him to sign and stuff, and albums I'd never even heard of that he's on. He's like, oh, I forgot I was on that one. Oh, it's crazy. Stuff like that.
Does Mario speak Italian at all?
A little bit. I think it's passable. It's passable. I don't think he had to pull it out. Well, actually, no. A few times he did. There was some times on tour where we'd hit a toll and we're like, I don't understand what's going on. Why is this? I'm like, how many coins do you need for this toll? And it's like 29 euros. Like, what? Like we need to talk about this. And so he'd talk his way through it. But I'd be lost. I speak a little Spanish and it's somewhat similar, but not enough. Not enough.
Very cool. Nice. All right, we'll switch gears here. Let's talk about the newest, I guess, music released by the band, the Turn to Stone Chapter 8, The Wake. It came out on Ripple back in April. I know you got the video obviously out there for Black Moon, which we had featured on one of our shows as well. And correct me if I'm wrong, I think I did read something about Black Moon. It was actually that was originally a track. I think all three of the tracks, I believe, on the split, right, were originally from the session from the Secrets of the Black Moon session, correct?
Correct. So
okay, yeah,
we wrote these 3 songs that made the split when we were in the studio for Secrets of the Black Moon. These were the ones that just didn't make the cut time wise, and there was nothing about us feeling they weren't like worthy songs. Really, we talked that out with Belasco at the time. Kind of like feeling like what flowed best for the record, and this just and these 3 didn't fit the flow, and we agreed. But ironically, Secrets of the Black Moon is a lyric from the song Black Moon.
Yeah,
that is on this record. That's what, and that was actually Blasco's idea. He was like, "Hey, we're gonna cut Black Moon, but I just love that line. So what do you think about it as being a title?" And I was like, "I think it's a great idea." And so we went with it. But yeah, we were happy to do this, obviously for reasons to get the 3 songs, that we didn't know if they'd ever see light of day, got to, but really because we were really happy and excited to work with Blue Heron. I know Jad Schickler very well, who's got his hand in many things. And I met him through Ripple. Great front man. And we got asked to play their album release in Albuquerque, and we drove up for it and played. And that's when we first met him. I was like, man, these guys rip. And we became friends. And he approached me. Todd had talked about having us do a split at some point. We're like, cool. And I think he had talked to Jad about it at one point, and Jad approached me about it. And I was like, yeah, man. And you're always gonna have regrets, because one regret is that we were gonna make this actually like a concept where we had called it The Wake, and we were going to like write songs in this kind of same vein. But we didn't know we were going to be as busy as we were on the road, which was at the time this was happening. Sasquatch asked us to go on the road, and we weren't going to say no. And then Fatso asked us to go on the road right when we got back to like, let's go write some songs. And we just never did. And so luckily when I had those 3 songs, like, hey, tell me if you think these will work. And everyone liked it. So luckily we still were able to do the split with them. We were worried we weren't going to, but I'm really glad that we did, and that we get to share something with these guys, because they're all such good dudes. And we got a tour coming up. We're going to play some shows with these guys, and I love seeing them live. If you've seen them live, they're pretty amazing.
man. Yeah. And the other thing too, one of the interesting things about the band, we see a lot of siblings in rock bands and couples, but I don't think I've ever heard of a father-daughter team together that you guys obviously have in High Desert Queen. How did that come about? I mean, talk a little bit about that. How was that, I guess, experience, in terms of, family members like that being in a band? It's gotta be, I guess, a little different,
It's different, but it's super cool to be flanked by the Millers, who are monster musicians. And then with Phil behind me, I've got like I've got the easiest gig around to dance around while those three people make magic. So, but it's pretty cool. We were talking about that with Mario because, Fatso has the father-son with Mario and Dino. And we were like, how cool is it that we've got this father-son, father-daughter? And we were actually trying to think about it. And we didn't come up with any other father-daughter bands, at least not in the genre. The genre, we weren't able to, not off the top of the head. We couldn't come up with anything, but yeah, it's cool how it came about. The first record, speaking of Secrets of the Black Moon, and the 3 songs on this record were pretty much written by Rusty and myself. For I would say about a guitar player, about 70% of it, because we got together years ago. I was playing with other people. Rusty auditioned. He and I immediately were like, "Oh, holy shit, you are something special. We've got something here." I moved away from Houston. Rusty still lives there, but I was like, "Man, we got something going. Let's keep this going." And we were literally just sending stuff back and forth digitally. And then I had met Phil. He was in another very good band we'd played with called Monte Luna at the time. And they were a 2-piece, and man, he was fun to watch play drums. And he's a session drummer. And so we kind of became friends. And I was like, and he lives out in this area when I moved here. I was like, hey man, we've got these songs and we're going to go to the studio, but we need like a studio drummer. Would you be interested? And he's like, yeah, man, I'll record your drums for you. And at the time we just asked a buddy of mine to play bass for us. Cause I was like, hey, we just need someone to track these bass tracks for us. And the only reason why Rusty jokes now is like, he could have asked Morgan then, but the reason why he didn't is he didn't think she'd want to play with a bunch of old dudes. and it was like, it didn't dawn on him at the time, it was like, it's okay. So we went in and we tracked all this stuff and we hit it off. Like Phil immediately was like, dude, cause he made all the stuff that we did digitally exponentially better. And that's actually why we're so excited about this new record. This is actually written by the 4 of us, like 100% by the 4 of us. No one sent a riff over computer. Like it was all written in the room together, which we're really excited about. But ironically, on the first record, Rusty has a pretty good story where a song we have called Heads Will Roll. He had recorded the riff on his computer and he had walked away and he put drums to it. Like just drum samples to give me some basis to work on some vocals. He walks away from the computer. He comes back and he's like, wait, I didn't record bass to this. I don't remember recording bass to this. He'd left it there for a while. And apparently Morgan came in, heard it, and just threw down this rad bass line.
That's awesome.
and literally just sat down, heard it,
awesome.
Knocked it out because she's a beast. And so we actually had her come record in the studio. We actually had her come record that because I was like, hey, you wrote the bass line, come record it. And so she did. And all of us immediately were like, oh, damn, she's good. And our bass player at the time was with us. He's pretty high up in the corporate world. And we started kind of getting some traction, like playing a lot of shows. Like, man, I just don't think I'm going to be able to play this many shows. And, he and I go way back. We're like longtime high school buds. So it was like, hey, man, we get it. We we understand. And we're like, hey, do you think Morgan would want to do it? And he's like, I'll find out. And she came in and it's just, she's owned it. And it's super cool to watch them because there'll be times on stage where they're just like rocking together, and it's like, man, that's badass. Like, how cool is it from a dad standpoint to do that, share something you love like this with your siblings. So it's pretty cool. Phil and I are always like, man, we'll just kind of get out of the way. This is awesome.
Nice. Yeah. Well, in terms of now the songwriting for the new record, then, I mean, is there anything, I guess, new or different that we can expect from, Secrets of the Black Moon, or is it essentially kind of similar style and sound that you guys have going on?
I think it's definitely, I think it's going to be, in my mind, it's very different. I'm sure people are going to hear it. They're going to hear the vocals, and it's going to be similar. They're going to hear the guitar tone and things. I think that we obviously have grown with each other and getting to know more about each other, becoming more friends. Like I said, it wasn't just hey, come record this in the studio, and actually knowing each other for a couple of years now. We've kind of, our influences, I think, have come out a lot more, as opposed to just like, I wouldn't say we wrote Secrets of the Black Moon trying to fit a genre or fit a mold, but there was definitely a song where like I remember when one of the first songs we did was Heads Will Roll. I'm sorry. Roll the Dice, which is on this split.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, okay, that's a stoner rock song. Like that's 100%. That's a stoner rock song,
Mm-hmm.
and then we're like, oh, we play Skyscraper. And that's a doom song, like we were able to like label the genres, and we made a conscious effort this time we didn't want to be like, there's no song we feel like that is this kind of song except rock and roll. And it's got some heavy rock. There's a lot more, I don't know how else to put it, but like Texas on this version, this record. I think it's going to be a lot more up tempo. I think there's very little doom aspects on this record. I think it's very, very up tempo. It's going to be heavier, but also, I don't know, there's going to be parts that are pretty melodic as well. I'm really excited about it because like I said, when we recorded it with no click track, it's because we wanted it to sound like we do live. I like our live show. I like that we tempo change on purpose because the energy is that way. And we tried to capture that as much as we could in the studio. And we had an engineer, Sky Casey, who totally was a friend of Phil's because he works at that studio. We told him that concept. He was all in, loved it, bought in, and he did a great job like helping us capture it too. So it was awesome.
Nice.
Yeah, you guys are spectacular live. I've been fortunate enough to see you a number of times. And, of course, you came out and played Planet Desert Rock Weekend.
That was a blast.
What a night that was. I think a real eye-opener for a lot of people. You think about it, you were probably the most unknown variable of that night because it was Nebula. So, obviously, they've been around for a while, and they played Vegas now for me 3, 4, 5 times now. And Salem's Bend has been playing here since my second show for the most part. So they got some folks. And then Sonolith is the local band, and they helped drive quite a few people in there. So, but man, I had a lot of people walk away going, that band's badass. Wow. I like them. And they would look at me all surprised. I would look at them and go, why do you think I would book someone that's not good? when if I let you go, I get all cocky with them because I feel real good about my gatekeeping when I play, period. Yeah. I'm an admitted, it's almost not gatekeeping, right? You know what I mean?
Oh yeah, guys, I know what it is though.
When you're like, it's my fucking show, so
it's your credibility, man. That's what it is. I know it from booking shows too. It's that what it is.
Of course you do. Of course you do. And it makes it an interesting aspect. But man, I do like your command, Ryan. Really, your command of the crowd. God, you must get off on this shit. I'll tell you. I mean,
it is Ryan, my drug.
Ryan, yeah. Tell me a little bit about your path as a singer. Singers fascinated me. That's probably the person I could relate to the most, as I am musically uninclined. I can do nothing, but I'm, a pretty good singer in the shower. And as a little kid, I was put into some situations singing in front of quite a few people in some random stuff. So I like the aspect of, obviously communication and energy. So talk to me, Ryan, your path as a singer a little bit.
Yeah. So first band I ever sang in, I was just out of high school. We were called Hogleg. and we're a little Texas band. And I literally was the reason why I sang in that band, because I did not have the best voice in that band, was because I was the only one that had balls to get in front of people and sing in front of people, just in the group that I was with,
Mm-hmm.
And I knew right away that, so I was like, this is fun. And I was no good. I was not any good at all. And I immediately was like, oh shit, okay. So yeah, I'm brave. I'll do this, but I am going to be being heard by people. And I started realizing, like, my guitar player is still one of my best friends of all time. The other guys, I'm like, they're really good. I can't suck. I can't suck. That's not fair. And so like I went and started taking some vocal lessons, and I always did stuff like my influences are very, very, very broad. But one thing they have in common is that they're all like incredibly good frontmen. Like my first and foremost is James Brown. And I'm sorry, he's the godfather of soul, and he can dance around. And I still, like, my parents can tell you stories. My dad gave me the 20 solid golden hits on cassette, and I would play that in my kitchen at full volume. And my kitchen had linoleum floor, and then there would be a carpet. And so in my mind, I was probably like 10. That was the linoleum floor was the stage, and the carpet was the crowd. And I used to take my shoes off so I could slide around on my socks like James Brown would, and try to move around and try to sing and hit some high notes, which I couldn't, but maybe a little better then, because I hadn't hit puberty yet. But but like, like that was a big influence of mine. And I started taking lessons, and those are actually some of the people that I would try to sing. Like when I went to a vocal coach, I remember she was always like, bring me 3 singers that you want to emulate as well. I know I can't emulate any of these, but I want to learn, like James Brown. I did Maynard Keenan. And at the time, I think I was doing a lot of Perfect Circle stuff. And then Chris Cornell. And because all 3 of those in my mind are completely unattainable. And so I'm like, why settle? If I'm going to try to practice for something, do that. And then that band fizzled out. I started another band with the same guitar player that did for a few years. And then I was probably about 24, 25. And then life kind of happens. Like everybody in the band started families and had kids, and just kind of the band stopped. And I took a job in Houston, moved away, and there was no music in my life for a good while, and it was killing me. And I probably went a solid 10 years without singing for anybody or anything. And what actually got me back into it is that, when Lane Staley passed away, some of my old buddies asked me if I wanted to like do this Alice in Chains tribute band. It wasn't supposed to be a tribute band. It was just supposed to be like a tribute show. Right?
Okay.
Yeah. And I was like, I'll do it. And so I was doing all the Staley parts, and it was awesome. Like it made me like really practice and get the passion for it again. And Lane Staley's vocal parts are not easy to sing. So it was cool to do. And then we did a couple of shows like that, but I was like, I don't want to be in a tribute band. It's not what I'm about. It's not this time. I didn't have the time for it. I was teaching, and I was a basketball coach, and I was like, life just gets in the way. I don't have time for that. And then Scott Weiland died, and I got asked to be in a Stone Temple Pilots tribute show. I'm like, Jesus, is that someone have to die for me to get a call? What's going on here? But I was like, you know what? Getting back on stage made me really be like, I love this completely. And I searched for a couple years in the Houston area to try to find a band to play with. And right as I did, I moved again. But then that's when I got rusty. So there's no better feeling than being on stage. I don't know what I do half the times. I appreciate the compliments, John, that I command the crowd and stuff. I don't even know what I do. When you say like I must get off on this, it's the coolest feeling. Is that because I do lose myself a lot. I can't admit to every show losing myself. There's sometimes, everybody gets in their own head sometimes, and you worry about things. But when it hits right, man, I have no idea what's going on. And I watch it on video later, like, what?
You just get in the zone, right?
Yeah.
You just get in the zone. Yeah.
Yeah.
I get it. I really do. I used to have to do speeches in front of hundreds and hundreds of people sometimes before the start of a shift.
Yeah.
It was like
Yeah.
Wolf of Wall Street kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And without the cocaine. At work, that is.
Yeah.
And man, it's just such an interesting feeling when you have people and you feel that energy coming back at you. So I really relate to what you do, Ryan. And again, big kudos to you, my brother. And I stress out for singers a lot.
You hit the nail on the head. You hit the nail on the head. Feeling the energy from the crowd. That is where I get it. Like people are like, because I get told a lot. But the one compliment I get all the time is my energy, and I'm like, no, you don't understand. Like I literally just sapped all that from you people in the crowd. Like I did, because I could be dog tired, not feeling well, whatever. But as soon as someone starts bobbing their head, I'm in. That's it.
I love it. Nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's fascinating to watch. I always stress that about thinking about singers is remembering lyrics. Like, how do you must be good at that, huh? Or what do you do to prepare for all that?
I'd be lying if I remembered every single word every time. There's no way I think anybody does that. I mean, I marvel at like when I watch a band like the Melvins, and I'm like, y'all have 40 years of music. How can you remember this stuff? I've got one record, so I can remember that, you know. But yeah, even when you're in the early stages of the song, you know, first kind of playing it, it can be daunting because when you lose yourself on stage, I sometimes also lose where I'm at.
Yeah,
I'm guilty of that. But I had a smart person tell me a long time ago that most of the time nobody understands what the fuck you're saying anyway on stage. So I kind of like, yeah, he was like, shed the ego. Like nobody knows if you're going, or, you know, I can say actual words that make no sense and people would still follow it. But
because it sounds, at least the sound is similar to what the song is. Yeah, I always kind of wondered about that a little bit.
But as you do it more, it becomes second nature, and it gets a little intimidating. For the first time in the last, past year, what's been happening is blows my mind. So the record came out, is the crowd singing the words, and I'm like, oh shit, I better remember what I'm saying, or they're gonna let me know I got them wrong. Like when the Mountain versus the Quake, people are always singing that chorus with me, and that's super cool. And so those are the ones you're not going to forget. But I've definitely been like saying the second verse first on accident, and then be like, oh crap, or sing the same lines. That happens because I'm going crazy and I don't know what I'm doing half the time, and then I was like, oh yeah, I sing right here. So it happens.
So you took us back in time a little bit. So I want to take you back to your senior year of high school.
Okay,
and senior, junior year, we'll go with that. What were the bands and stuff that you were listening to at that time?
So senior year.
And what year was that?
1999. So I was the last class of the century. And I was a Tool freak. So Anima was, in my opinion, still their best record. It's all opinion. But I discovered them late. Well, that album came out, like in 96 or 97. So I was in high school. And my brother showed me, when that album had already come out, well, maybe right before it came out, he had showed me Undertow. And at the time in high school, I was probably listening to, at that time in high school, I was probably, like, my favorite band was REM. Like my tastes had changed. And I still love REM, but I just don't listen to much anymore. And probably Radiohead at the time, early high school. But then when he showed me Undertow, I was like, oh my God, what is this?
Yeah.
And I probably was listening to Anima, Stone Temple Pilots' Purple. I wore that record out. That was one of the, so I was late to the game on grunge, and it's my favorite genre. And that was actually the record that kind of introduced me to I found bands like Alice in Chains and Soundgarden because of me hearing Vaseline on MTV one time.
Okay.
And I was like, oh my God, that is a cool freaking song. And then ironically in 99, an album came out that I got to listen to with my dad. So I was super cool. And that was Tom Waits' Mule Variations.
Oh, yeah.
That was, my dad raised me on Tom Waits. And so he hadn't had an album come out in a very long time at the time. And so when I got that, I was like, hey, Dad, we can actually, he does not like Tool. He does not like Stone Temple Pilots. It was like something, hey, we can listen to this. And so I think those 3 records I probably wore out the most my senior year in high school. And I still remember it vividly, you know, like being that high school kid and rolling the windows down and cranking it all the way up, you know, as much as I could.
And where did metal ever come into play for you?
No, it didn't until late. And when I say there were bands that I got into, like Typo Negative, I loved. I think people would call them metal for sure, right? And like I got into them shortly. Well, I probably heard them. I used to always sing "Cool Bush Days." I thought it was kind of cool, you know, before I actually listened to the record. But I'm a huge fan now. And then Tool was probably my gateway to like a lot of heavy band. Well, one thing I got to give credit to Tool is through Tool I discovered Kaya. So that's kind of where I went with that. Is that Tool covered Demon Cleaner? I was back in this time, you know, you're trying to find the bootlegs. Yeah. But I found a bootleg CD where they covered Demon Cleaner. And it was like, this is a band called Caius. And so I checked out Caius, and then I was done. I was like, okay, this is the coolest thing I've ever heard. And they became probably, that was probably like, if you had said first year of college, I'd have told you Caius, but yeah, I hadn't found them just yet. But a lot of the metal bands I listened to, like I got really in, like I'm one of my favorite, most listened to bands like probably right now is Yob. And bands like that, like just you know, just recently, you know, I've just started listening to them. Acid King, I don't even know if that's metal. Electric Wizard, you know, stuff like that.
Those are Doom.
Those are Doom bands. You're right. Those any
no
type
Priest
of
or Mate, no Priest or Mate and Scorpions for you.
No, I never got into it. Now Van Halen, because my sister, she's 10 years older than me, and she worshipped David Lee Roth. Yeah. So like she had his poster like on her wall. I remember that. And so I remember her jamming Van Halen. I'd go in there and dance there as a little kid, you know. So I got that, but I just kind of missed the bus on all that. Yeah. You know, it was literally, I was just past the age, I think, of that, you know. I just missed it. I respect it all now. But
and you said you grew up like near Houston, correct? Like Houston area?
No,
was it?
I grew up in between. So I lived in Houston for about 15 years.
Okay.
I took a job there, but I grew up in what's called New Braunfels, which is between Canyon Lake and between San Antonio and Austin. Okay. So I heard a lot of metal because San Antonio is
big,
town.
very big. Oh yeah.
And I'll be honest, some of those bands, man, when you're a kid, you don't know shit. And I was kind of a music snob. Like I'll be honest, if it wasn't Tool, it sucked, or if it wasn't associated with a Tool, it sucked when I was in high school. You know, it's who I'm so glad I'm not that way anymore. But I was a punk little kid who thought I knew everything, and so like those bands didn't sound like Tool, and so I didn't. And 95 Kiss, a radio station, there's a big metal station here in San Antonio that I get still. And they still play the same music since like 2004. I don't think they've changed. I don't think they've changed their playlist. But you know, like I missed the bus on all this. They would play a lot of these bands, and it's just like, doesn't sound like Tool. So I kind of dismissed them. And it was actually a guitar player I played with in a previous band, and then Rusty, my guitar player now, who's like, dude, you got to listen to this shit. And I'm like, oh, okay, I get it now. I get it. I just missed the bus when I was a kid.
Yeah, you're young.
Yeah. Well, thank you. Yeah.
Compared to us, complete me. I mean, Jesus.
Yeah.
College. I graduated college in '92. You weren't even out of high school yet. So
well, wasn't in high school yet. But Jesus. I feel old on tour because our bass player is 24 years old.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it's all right.
Yeah.
Awesome. Yeah. Awesome. Well, Ryan, let's get into talking about what's coming up this September, of course. And that, of course, is the 3rd annual RIPPLEFEST Texas.
Oh, yeah.
Another stellar lineup you got lined up with Lick My Spoon Productions there. Now, just a first question I ask is, now it's the 3rd year. I mean, obviously you got 2 years on your belt doing this. I mean, lineups keep getting, just continue to be as strong as every year.
Mm-hmm.
Just in general, is the whole experience of you putting on something this massive? Because I think what's really awesome too about RIPPLEFEST is, it's a 4-day thing. You've got pre-party, you got the after party. This is 4 days of this. Is it getting easier or more tougher the bigger it gets and the more people know about it? Well, I mean, I guess I'm sure there's parts that are easier and parts that are tougher. So just talk, I guess, about now that your 3rd year doing it. I mean, just take us through like what you're experiencing now compared to, say, what you did last year, for example.
To answer the question about is it harder or easier, it goes both ways. There's a lot of it that's easier, I think, because I know kind of what to do, but it's harder in parts because I'm a big advocate of like raise the bar every time.
Okay.
And so I want to raise the experience. I want to make it better every single time. It's not, I mean, I can throw a killer fest, but I want it to be better, and my biggest, RIPPLEFEST is blown much bigger than I ever thought it was. The first year was kind of like, hey, I've seen these RIPPLEFESTs up in the Bay Area. Hey, Todd, like, how do we get one of those in Texas? And he's like, oh, well, it's the bands that always put them together. And I was like, well, if no one's going to do it, I'm going to do it. I just kind of grabbed the bull by the horns and went. And it was like kind of like a thing where I really respect the Ripple idea of the family and not just, I'd only been introduced to it by Ripple, but I see that it's cross this whole music scene, has nothing to do with just Ripple, because there's bands on all these other labels that were all part of the family, and I was amazed by that. But at the time I was like, hey, I'm kind of really impressed with this Ripple family thing. Right. So I booked, I was so proud to be, I got a record contract and I was on Ripple. And I'm like, so I invited all these bands on Ripple only for the first year. Then that's when I kind of learned what the scene is like. I started to play enough shows with Hiders at Queen, kind of see what the family aspect is of the people that come to the fest, and meeting some of the same people that travel across the country for these shows. And I know John experiences that a lot. There's people that travel from all over to come to your shows, and it's so unique. And so I was like, man, I need to take this up. And I went really big last year. I was way over my head last year, way over my head. But I also think that's the only way to learn. Is like kind of you got to make mistakes, and you got to go big or go home, for lack of better words. But my biggest thing was the vibe I was going to create. Like I knew I was going to book great bands, and that's a huge part of it, because good music creates good vibes. But you've got to. I want the environment to be. I want people when they're like, man, RIPPLEFEST, there's something different about that festival than any other one. And there's no like secret ingredient to that. Like, I'm a historian of sorts, and I'm like looking at all these festivals, like what makes this one unique? And I couldn't put my finger on anything, and so I didn't really know if I was making it special last year either. I just knew that I wanted a venue that had great vibes, and I found it in the Far Out Lounge that had amazing people working it, which I found. And then I wanted to only book bands that I felt like were not only incredible musicians, but equally as good people. And some you take a gamble on because you don't know. But, like I felt like that vibe is going to like it'll radiate through everything else, but I heard that repeatedly last year, like, man, other than it being freaking hot as balls, it was such a cool atmosphere. And that was from everything down. I took the European aspect from hospitality for bands. I didn't want them to pay for a thing. I wanted them to be taken care of and catered to and have the best equipment to play on stage, the best light show, the best sound, the best food that I gave them some Texas barbecue and some Texas Mexican food and some all the stuff that I felt like, because, I was going to lose money on that, but when you've got happy musicians, you make better music. It creates good vibes. Because I've played shows where I walk in, you're like, here's, where the bar's like, here's your 2 drink tickets. And sometimes that's lucky. Here's your 2 drink tickets. And like when the last beat's done, like they're like, get your gear and get the hell out of here. Like we're closing down. It's not cool to walk into an environment where you're already like up against the wall. Like there's already stress and you're late for sound check and blah, it's just all kinds of stuff, whatever, so it doesn't work. But, so I didn't want that to happen. And so I took care of the bands first. And I figure the rest will take care of itself. And a lot of these bands too are like, word got out that this is a good festival to play. And it became a lot easier to contact the King Buffalo or contact an Acid King. I had people in my corner that were like, oh man, you need to go play that festival. And that's so humbling to me. I never thought that would be the case, So, and the relationship that I developed along the way, because I do invite a lot of friends, because why wouldn't you? And, a lot of these bands that I've been fortunate enough to have a relationship with and a lot of really good, talented bands. There are so many good bands out there. And every time I sit with John, I learn about more bands I didn't even know about, right, that are good. There's so many bands out there. Yeah. So the hardest part is, saying no to bands. It's probably why I like last year I was going to do 2 days and it turned into 4. I was really bad at saying no. This year I had to put my foot down a little bit. It's still 4 days, but last year I did 4 full days.
Full days, yeah. Wow.
Yeah, and I was like, first of all, I was beat for a week.
Oh, I'm sure you were.
And I know I was running stuff, but I was also a fan. I'm like, man, this takes stamina in itself. But hardest part is having a band who's so worthy about to be on this lineup. Just have to be like, hey man, I don't have room. But that's the hardest part. But I'm very happy with because every single band on here was like literally hand selected by myself and my brother. Like
nice.
We were like, hey, we made a list of all the bands we wanted. Some say no, and so then we have to come up with another list. Or schedules don't work out. And then you get every now and then you get a surprise where, you get a submission. I get all kinds of submissions, but I don't even ask for submissions because like I said, we hand select these bands.
That's what I do.
Yeah. But every now and then you're like, well, I've heard, who are you? And, you kind of look and you're like, oh, well, this is kind of, I never heard this. This is cool. And you get a couple surprises. I've got a couple bands on this list.
One of the ones you have on there, Restless Spirit, who me and John are big fans of. I thought that was a great selection. Taking those guys.
They are so good,
so good, man. Yeah.
And that would have been a submission from Jad.
Oh wow, okay.
Because they're
Magnetic
on
Magnetic Eye. That's right. Yeah.
And see, I did not know them. And what's funny about that is he sent that to me, and I was like, I had literally, I think the day of, stars align in weird ways. The day of, I'm going to my Hiders at Queens Spotify page, and I'm always curious to see how many plays we've got, and I like to check it every now and then. And it always says, like, I'm always curious. I'm fascinated by you might also like these bands. I'm always fascinated by that to see who you lumped in with. And for the first time, that was the first time I saw Restless Spirit. I go, I wonder who these guys are. I'm gonna check them out. And it would be within the hour. Jad suggested them for the fest. I was like, okay, I gotta check them out. Heard the record. Yeah. I was like, done. Those guys are rad. Yeah. So I was happy to have them. So they were definitely one of those. And there was an Royal Sons were another one that was suggested to me. And I was like, oh, these guys are from Texas. I didn't even know. And they were so good and bluesy and just, man, really cool. So, and I haven't seen them live yet, but I saw them, a couple YouTube videos. Like, man, these guys are rad. So I was excited to put bands like that I didn't know. There's some that a lot of these I knew. Like I went after, every single one of these bands. But there was a couple that were suggested to me that are on here.
Yeah, another one on there is a band I love, that blue collar working band, the good old the Heroin from San Antonio. There, man, I was glad to see those guys on there. And those guys live,
Yeah,
they're gonna rock the socks off of people. You'll see that, man. I mean, they're phenomenal.
Like I've got them. Oh man, they're gonna do the pre-party.
They are nice, very cool.
And I've got them closing the pre-party out, and people are like, well, they're not the biggest band, but they fucking rock.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, like.
Yeah,
people will stay late because when that first no hits, they're gonna go, whoa. And I knew them. They were like kind of a legend in San Antonio.
Mm-hmm.
So I knew the band. I'd never seen them. I was in Houston at the time. They were kind of blowing up here.
Mm-hmm.
And I know they went on tour and they've done all that, but I just hadn't heard them. And their drummer Johnny now drums for Thunder Horse. And who's they're our buds, man. They're like they're homies. Great. Bishop and I have been homies for a long time. Like way back from first band, that band Hogleg. I played with his band back then,
Mm-hmm.
But it was I put a show and I wanted Thunder Horse. Say, hey man, we can't do it, but you should put on Johnny's other band, the Heroin. I was like, done. And the first time I saw him, I literally think that night I was like, hey Johnny, what are you guys doing in September? Because it was they're really, really good. I mean, there's a lot of hidden gems. I think that's what also. There's the balance, right? People know the King Buffaloes, Acid Kings, the Brant Bjorks, the Sasquatches, the Wofats, right? Those people know those bands. I take pride into finding a band that I think is super rad that maybe people don't know about. And I don't think I don't have my hand on the pulse, of music as much as like maybe you two guys do, but I try to dive in as much as I can to music. And there's bands that I'm like, man, like Big Pig. That's Dino from Fatso Jetson. That's Mario's son's band.
Son's band, yeah. Mm-hmm.
And John, did you see him at Heavy Psych when we were there?
Oh, I've seen them quite a few times actually through the years.
And so live, I was like, oh man, these guys they're different and they're fun. Yeah. And they're crushing. Like it's crushingly like kind of heavy. And so like, I'm like, man, people need to see these guys and they haven't really played outside of California. So I was happy to get them and everyone in their right mind should know the band Kind, but I still feel like there's people who don't. And so like, you try to get them and
they're just such a high quality band in every way possible. Their set last year was primo. We just had Riggs on the show with all
great
kinds
episode.
of,
I watched that one. Yeah, great episode.
Thank you. Great, stories, great guys, all of them. And a Kind is one of those just delivers such good stuff every time. You're bringing over a band from England as well.
Yeah. And see, I'm so happy to do this. Dunes. We met these guys last year when we played our first shows in the UK, and they just happened to be the band. Well, we were long story short, when we started booking this, Cyclona, and I'd become friends with Phil Hay from Cyclona, and he was like, hey, well, y'all should come, let's do some shows together. So we started booking shows. They get asked to do a big festival, so they had to pull out because of radius clauses, but we still kept our shows. He suggested these guys Dunes because they work really hard and they're pretty cool. And we immediately became buds. We played like 3 shows with them last year. We did the same thing this year. I asked them to play some shows with us again this year. They're hungry, and I love it. I love a band that's hungry and getting out there and working. And they were like, we know we'll take a loss, but we want to come to the States. And I was like, done. I know nothing about visas or anything. So I learned. And it's a pain in the ass, which those boys know. We talked about it, but I learned now. So I'm ready. Like, I'm like, all right, to me, that was my stepping stone because I've had other bands from overseas that have wanted to come.
Yeah.
And so now I know kind of how to do it.
Yeah.
So that helps, But yeah, I had a band last year that came over, Full Tone Generator from Australia.
Yep.
But they weren't the least bit concerned in visas, so they just came. But,
that's when I did Planet Desert Rock too. I had 8 European bands come over. No visas involved. Just covert. I mean, I'd set them up. Backlines and obviously stuff like that. Even guitars at times were set up. I had to have all that set up because part of the strategy is they wouldn't all go on the same flight. and many of them didn't fly with their guitars.
Yep.
Yeah,
It's a smart way of doing
so
it.
it's
Smart
kind
way
of
of
a
doing
real tricky thing, but that's what you have to do nowadays. Is there just is not enough money in the scene quite yet over here. That's for sure.
Yeah, there's not. So, but I'm happy to bring those guys over. They are very good,
Yeah.
high energy, like very Queens of the Stone Age-esque band, and but still with a little. They got a unique England kind of rock vibe, to them, and I really dig those guys a lot. So I was happy to bring them over, and hoping to bring even more, in years to come.
I think a band that's going to blow people away, and I think Matt will agree with me, is Unita.
Oh yeah.
I've seen Unita with Mark Sunshine. This guy's great. I mean,
Yeah,
that's coming from me, who loves John Garcia and friends with him, know him, massive respect. But I have a lot of respect for Unita, the songs. I mean,
Yeah.
that's
I do
when
too.
you just go back, I mean, people are like, damn, that'd be cool to watch and hear live. And I got lucky with House of Broken Promises a few times, because half of Unita is half of Broken Promises, or
Right.
2/3 of Broken Promises. Mike Cancino and Arthur C. And they would play a Unita medley of like 3 songs mixed in.
Wow.
And when they played Black Woman, I just turned into this whole nother fucking beast, because the song is, I mean, and Arthur, just his riffs, his tone, along with his
stage
visuals,
presence. Yeah.
and his stage presence and visuals.
It's great.
The whole thing, it's just, when people can get over the mental stuff of Garcia, that's going to be one that I think a lot of people are going to be like, oh, let's check it out. Why not?
Yeah, I agree.
And they're going to be like, they're going to walk away, because I've with the people that came to my show, I had them, Mondo Generated, and The Obsessed all one night.
Yeah.
And people were like, whoa, okay. And it was loud as fuck too.
Oh yeah,
So-
with those bands, absolutely. You helped
Yeah.
you helped me kind of push me over the edge on that one. On Unita, I remember reaching out to you about that, because
Yeah.
I'm a huge fan. I love
Yeah.
Unita,
Yeah.
and they were interested in coming, and I'd kind of started dialogue just to kind of see if there was
Sure.
interest, and they were. And I remember reaching out to you like, okay, dude, you've seen them with the new singer.
So
I need your honest opinion, and yeah, so that it was.
I saw them on the second show.
Yeah,
Saw them on their second show ever. They've been to Europe since then. So they played another, couple dozen over there. We had Arthur on the show as well. What a funny motherfucker that guy is.
yeah.
And Arthur and Mike played the first show I ever had as a Vegas Rock Revolution promoter. So
Yeah, that's awesome.
super,
Yeah, I reached
super good
out to
guys.
the-
And
I reached out to the Sasquatch boys too, to tell me what the show was like, because I know they played some shows overseas with them. So they told me it was the new singer's legit, and so I was like, all right, I'm ready to roll.
they go way back with Arthur as well. They did a tour with House of Broken Promises many moons ago.
Yeah.
Great lineup,
Oh
Ryan.
yeah. Fantastic.
There's no slouches, and what's great is there are a lot of friends too. So my big deal. There's going to be no overlapping. Every band you want to see every band you can. So that's a big deal for me, because we've all suffered that pain of having to make a decision of all
Psycho
of this
Vegas.
band, or 20 minutes of this band, or 20 minutes of that band. What are we gonna do? And I
Like
can't
Psycho
stand it.
Vegas, really, for people like you and me, that really
Yeah.
jaded and taught us, like, Planet Desert Rock, obviously, I just use one venue and just do evening shows and make it easy that way. We all have, I think, own niche to what these festivals are about and vibe. I feel kindred spirits with yours, because it's such great Southern hospitality down there. You and I
Likewise,
have
man.
a lot
Likewise.
of same similar taste, I think, in stuff. So my tickets are bought. Me and my high school buddies.
Awesome.
It's our 3rd year. We just got to get the usual Airbnb set up, and we'll be there for every single night. I felt like, I don't know what it was, ever since COVID, I feel like the sun is like a regenerator of energy for me.
That vitamin D, baby.
I didn't even get like tired and worn out. I mean, listen, I didn't start drinking beer, until mid-afternoon.
Gotta be
and I would mix
strategic.
water in a lot, but I would smoke the fucking, smoke a bunch of bud
Yeah.
because there's any time's a good time to smoke bud
Yeah.
when you're on vacation and you listen to rock and roll. But man, the night comes down and you're kicking it in. And I'll tell you, folks that are listening, you're on the fence. The food was really good too. And to give you an idea of the setup, you walk in, it's a big property. You look
Huge.
right to the left, and you have what I call the second stage, and it's kind of like a little mini amphitheater kind of set up. Right? I wouldn't even call it amphitheater. That sounds almost too
Under that massive tree, all the shade.
with
and
a
everything.
big,
It's nice.
massive tree giving you some shade. There's literally picnic benches kind of lined up a little bit away from the stage, obviously, so there's room to be right there in front of the stage rocking, and to the sides are cool as well. And if you keep walking just straight from the gate in, there's a bar inside.
Yep.
And, you set up a little tiny
There's air conditioning in there if you need a little
tiny setup in there,
We're going to be in
little
September.
tiny.
It'll be better this
Yeah.
year. It won't be as hot.
A little better, sure.
Yeah.
And inside, you had a little stage in there as well. I saw some really trippy, I saw Rickshaw Billy's was a real trip. Mario Lali and that whole
Big
thing
summers.
was.
Yeah, they're going to be playing in that room again.
Yeah, that is just I could only be in there for so long. I did feel like it was a little like, woo, all right, I got to go.
So this year I'm only doing one show in there, and that's the Rubber Snake Charmers are going to close it out. It's going to be a lounge area for the whole show, but one show is them. And also one thing I didn't mention at one show I'm really excited about is we're doing a Legends of the Desert jam session. So we're orchestrating that right now because there's a lot of legends there. With obviously the Fatso boys and Brant and Avon
with Alfredo Hernandez
and a lot of friends involved. And there's going to be
nice.
It's going to be like I truly wanted something that won't be seen anywhere else. And one thing I've learned is not many musicians are comfortable with getting up and doing something unrehearsed. But I've learned that all of these guys love it. And so it's like there's something different about that desert scene. And there's people not from that vein that love it too. And we're going to mix it all in together. So it's going to be a lot of people I'm still kind of putting all the pieces together. That's the thing I'm probably most excited. We're going to shut that Saturday night. That's going to shut down Saturday night.
That's interesting.
Nice.
And that'll change things up a little bit. That was a nice little area to go to get some air, chill out for a little bit, get out of the sun.
Yeah.
And folks, when you walk onto the property, if you just look left, way down is this big ass stage that's been put up there. I'm talking like a pro fucking stage. Like there's no mess around like a festival where the stage is only, 4 feet off the ground or whatever. This is set up and barricaded up.
It's larger than the ACL stages in Austin.
Wow.
It's larger than the ACL stage. It's massive. It's beautiful.
It really is impressive. And then they have great food trucks. I think it was like 3. And, I did a different one each day or different parts.
We'll have those and more this year.
Good.
Always bigger. Always bigger.
Nice. Really, there you go. Like the food was really good, folks. And there's even across the street, shopping plaza with a restaurant or two you can go to, before the show or if you want to take a quick break, literally just across the street.
That was like everybody's meeting place, Torchy's Tacos.
Good spot too. That's why we ran into you guys even. Yeah. So it's a good time. And it's not right city center in the middle of Austin, but it's not far away, meaning you could go stay there and, spend whatever down there and just Uber over. Or you can do like us. We literally got a house 5 minutes from the property.
I like the location because we're south away from because Austin's got some crazy traffic because it's blown up population wise. So it's south, it's away from all of that, but it's like a 10 to 15 minute Uber ride in if you want to like go to 6th Street or to downtown or see all the Austin stuff. Or you want to go to some of the famous barbecue joints. You can, it's all there. So it's nice. I love the location of that venue. I found a gym out there for sure. That place is awesome. I love that venue. The people are good. The beer's good. The food's good. The sound, that's massive to me. Some of the best sound around. So they got like best music venue in Austin, which is saying a lot, like 3 years running now. So it's pretty cool.
How do you feel about the scene right now? And what do you see that can be some improvements in it?
It's different. The scene has changed even in the last. I mean, COVID changed everything, right? But being called the music capital of the world is a very lofty moniker that I don't think Austin should hold anymore. And I'm saying that about my place where we're from. You know, I just Queens and Austin fan. The music's still there. Don't get me wrong. Like the bands, the quality, the talent, the amount of bands are massive. But unfortunately, Austin's gotten so expensive, it's kind of priced the musician out. We're seeing a lot of like the tribute and cover bands and kind of take the seat.
Taking over.
There's still a lot of venues though that are holding strong, and I'm always like, please go support. But I mean, there's a lot of good bands in Austin still. You know?
Oh yeah.
I mean, you mentioned
a ton of ones from. Yeah, I mean, so many heavy psych and stoner bands and retro.
Oh yeah,
it's crazy. You know, from Black Angels to Duel to Scorpion Shot. I mean, it's a lot of fucking great. I mean, but when I ask about the scene, so you've given us a little micro. What about in a bigger picture in the States? What's your vibe on that? What's your feel on that? And then where do you think it's going? What you can improve in it?
So I'm the consummate optimist. I'm always glass half full kind of guy. And I do feel that, I mean, rock music has never been gone, right? But it died in the sense where people weren't supporting it.
Yeah, good point.
I've definitely seen a resurgence, I feel, in that. Now, what's ironic is the resurgence, I feel like, is all the people like 40 years old plus.
Absolutely. Like
coming out and doing it, you know, but I think they're the ones feeling the desperation of, fuck, this could be gone.
Yeah.
You know, like we need to go support this, you know, which is great because they are coming out and supporting, and it's been awesome. And so the amount of young people that come to our shows is far and few between. I always love the people who bring their kids that are of age, and it's like, yes, you're teaching them right, you know?
Yeah.
And we definitely did a lot more of that. I just think there needs to be a lot of, I mean, the best way to fix it, of course, is, you know, for somebody to write an album that hits the top 40 charts. That's true rock and roll, you know, of some
Well, we got that right now.
I know.
Two bands.
It's feeling
Queens
great.
of Stone Age and Rival Sons.
Yep, it's feeling great.
Really put together two very good albums that if it's given enough, you know, if they do an, you know, I say airplay if it's given enough airplay. Bottom line is airplay is paid for. So if those labels, you know, do what they can and hire the right people and push it, they got the songs. They really did.
Yeah.
Well, I think.
Go ahead.
No, I was going to say, I think what's really good is what I'm seeing is, like you said, right? I mean, 40 and above, you know, that age range, it's also very fan driven right now. You know, the heavy rock scene I've been seeing, and that's how, if you look at historically, if you look how scenes really got big, whether it was metal back in the 80s or whatever it was initially all fan driven. And then of course the labels they couldn't not take notice and do something with it because they saw, okay, there's a lot of money involved in this that we could, you know, possibly make. And so I think I think the way it's going right now is absolutely outstanding. I mean, with having a Ripple Fest, you know, and just having even Ripple and all these other labels supporting and getting behind it, you know, and making it, like I said, fan driven from guys like you and John. You know, it's people within the scene now who are actually putting on all the shows. You know, you don't have the big production companies doing that coming in because people are tired of paying the prices for Live Nation shit and all that stuff. And everyone's tired of it. I am. And so I think I think because it's fan driven, I think that's what's really going to continue to just drive, and this scene's going to continue to flourish. That's just my opinion. Yeah.
I agree. And I think there's a sense of like like almost like a badge of honor, or kind of like there's something about this being DIY.
Yeah,
And
exactly.
and this scene being completely all driven by people like John and myself and many others before us and with us right now that are DIY. Do it for the love of it. And there's a sense of ownership of being a part of that, for us, but I mean, even for like the fans, like I think the reason why I see the same people all the time, they truly support. They feel like, hey, we're going to say we were there from the beginning,
Yeah.
and they get it,
And I think that they feel the vibe and they enjoy it. I think that it's fascinating to see. Like, there's people that went to both RippleFest and Planet as Rock, because they're really, really a lot different experience. And that's
Absolutely.
what sometimes and give it to Desert Fest, New York, saving like such a dynamically different experience. It may be a merry-go-round of some of the same bands at times.
Yeah, of course.
Because we could only have so many bands, from the States that are able to go do shows, and not as many from Europe. And Heavy Psych Sounds, which is an unbelievable label, Matt and I, we sing their praises all the time. Unbelievable label to me. Pretty much got to put it right there with Ripple, quite frankly.
Absolutely.
And they're obviously a European-based one out of Rome. And then with Reese and what he does with the Desert Fest, it's really. And then you go to Maryland Doom Fest, which has been a
total DIY
iconic thing over there for like a decade plus. Obviously, outstanding bands from the Doom realm and some Stoner over there. And they do it, every year. And you even got New Mexico clicking in there.
Yeah.
Mesa not happened this year, but a variation of it is. Yeah. Burke City.
We're playing that. It's gonna be cool.
Sweet.
That's right,
yeah. And New Mexico, I mean, that's a tough market to begin with. So that's a lot of balls for Brad, for Roman and those guys.
Roman, he's doing it though, man. I love it. I mean, he's a guy. He does it because he loves it. There's no other reason.
Yeah, I mean, Roman lost his partner.
I know.
Yeah,
died. I know. He's still going at it. So there's a lot of people trying. And for people that are listening to this that don't go to anything, man, you have the greatest time going to these. As long as you're not some recluse, like you're just hanging out in the corner, not doing anything. I mean, hell, last year we had some whacked out motherfucker.
And it was awesome. He became like the poster child of RippleFest Texas last year. Yeah.
Nice.
God, it was a little nerve-wracking at times because I remember looking down at the ground and he was like laying on the on the ground, like moving around, like taking in the sun, like it was very strange.
I was always nervous, and then I talked to him, and he was completely coherent. So I'm like, okay, all right, this is how this guy vibes. I'm cool with it.
Yeah, he messaged me for like a month or so after that on Instagram.
But I love it, and that's a story that's gonna carry on forever, for RippleFest. So
Savage Tan too. He just couldn't give a shit either. He's like, your shirt off, Matt, just fucking walking around. I mean, I don't know what was going on, but it was better than the Sound Man on acid, that's for sure.
Exactly right, man. Exactly.
There you go.
but man, we had this conversation in the van with Fatso Jetson, because they've played the big arenas and they've played the 20 people club. So we all express a concern that the arena rock band is almost dead. Yeah. Right now, there's the bands that have been doing it since the beginning that are still doing it.
Yep.
But there's some bands like I've got two bands coming to RippleFest in King Buffalo and Acid King. Acid King was on the billboards. That's right. It was on the billboard.
That's right. It was. Yeah.
And then King Buffalo is
blowing up.
Got to be one of the fastest growing bands right now.
Blowing up. Yeah.
They're crossing over to the mainstream, to everything. So there's hope. I think that rock music has obviously never been weak. But if you knew where to look, and not the radio,
Exactly.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Right.
But laziness and all that it generates that at times.
Yeah.
But King Buffalo, all them witches and elder
Yeah,
have all done something very, very special this last 5-6 years. Their arc has been very impressive.
Amazing. Yeah.
I think what's happening also, I think psychedelic rock is really gotten bigger.
Yeah, I think so
some
too.
bands like Tammy Impala, obviously bands like that are just some kind of psychedelic, Black Angels. I think with the age of Spotify has really helped, because I think these bands are able to get on some of those playlists like that. And these bands are playing in front of a lot more people now. I saw Elder play with 15 people once. So, to see now they're playing in front of 600 in a sold out place in Denver. And you have to have the music to back it up at the same time.
Sure.
And I think all three of them are different and cool.
Because some people will like, all right, I'll go to a show, whatever, and they're gonna have to be wild or they're not going back, So it has to be the right show, There's all I always call them the gateway bands, like when someone's like, well, what are you talking about? You play heavy rock, stoner rock. What is that? I'm like, all right, here's Sasquatch. Listen to them.
Yeah, that's it.
They're like one of my favorite gateway bands. I'm like, this sounds like anything you
absolutely
it should be on the record, or King Buffalo. That's another band. I'm like, whoa, this kind of vibes. I'm like, exactly. Like, it feels good. It's not.
Yeah. Well, that stuff too is very accessible to everybody too. You know what I mean? It's not too doomy or whatever. It's. You've got, especially now, you've got a lot of people, especially those jammy type bands, like you said, like the Elders and King Buffaloes.
Yeah.
And all them witches. I mean, they're
all
doing
of which is extremely palatable, right?
Super palatable for exactly. Yeah. And they're a lot of, we even saw it with, what is it, the Australian band, King Gizzard and the Wizard Lizard. I mean, they sold out the Hollywood Bowl, for God's sakes, they sold out. I mean, so I think people like that vibe. You got a lot of those sort of people that were into like the psychedelic jam bands that enjoy those bands as well, because they've got some longer songs too, and just blending them together with just straight rock, with it's just I mean, there's so much. I mean, there's so much in the scene right now. It's thriving. It really is. It's just
what's helping is a lot of these bands that have been around that are resurfacing.
That too. You're right.
You're wearing a Faith No More shirt, and those guys went and did a tour, and it exploded. There's bands like that have been doing it forever that never really broke up, but just weren't active and are active again. And that's definitely helping a lot.
And they're bigger now sometimes than ever. Some of these bands, they're saying it. They're like, we've never, sold this.
Yeah, because they've been gone away long enough where now the same people that came to the shows are bringing their kids.
Exactly. There you go.
That's a little bit of a trip. Yeah. Mr. Bungle, which got zero airplay ever, and they just did
selling out shows.
Pretty darn a pretty darn successful tour with the Melvins and Spotlights, which is like a super cool band that
I love.
It's brand new to so many of us. They've actually been around like 5, 6, 7 years even.
Yeah,
but
I've listened to them for a long time. They're great.
They're great. Yeah.
Wow, I haven't. And so when I got turned on by this album, I was like, holy moly, that is
good stuff.
super, super cool. Yeah. It's really fascinating that the upside we have in this country for music of all ages. It's funny. In Facebook, there's all these different groups, right, where you can join. Doom group, stoner group. And some of them are band groups. And so I'm a member of King Buffalo and of All Them Witches, and that's another one I'm trying to remember. And I'll go in there quite a bit, and there's people that have no idea, zero idea about stoner rock or heavy psych, none. Like they just stumbled upon us. And this guy Bill Curls, who lives up in New York, he helps moderate a lot of those things. I will watch him, and he'll pop some stuff on there that he's heard or seen, or possibly on my page, or just knows about also. And I'll put some stuff on there, and people are like, "Oh, cool! I have no idea." And I just think there's just so much upside. It's organic, obviously, more than anything. There's some buttons to be pressed along the way that can help. I'm optimistic, but man, it's a rough game.
the roughest part of it is because I think the biggest enemy to it being successful is just pure laziness.
Yeah.
You know, of what we're experiencing right now, just people like, not going to get out, not going to do it, whatever. Or even, you know, unfortunately, economy is a big part of it. I experienced that in Europe, you know, like we're playing in Europe, and because in Europe, it's not like here, you know, you can drive 30 miles and be a completely different currency, language, culture, everything. And you're like, whoa, it's not where I just came from. So you feel it, but you're feeling that in the States too. And so it's rough. We're going to have to bounce back in a lot of ways. But, you know, I think before this show came on, Matt and I talked about the whole, like, kind of like a pendulum swinging. And right now the pendulum is kind of way up here and it's still kind of going up, but it's going to come back. I mean, everything is cyclical.
I'm very excited that Rival Sons and Queens of Stone Age both put out very good quality albums. We know Queens of Stone Age, half the crowd's going to hate, half's going to like it, of the old school crowd. But, I mean, they got a lot of different demographic that likes them. I mean, the ladies definitely are far more into those kind of bands at a higher rate than where they are to, you know, some other stuff. And so, in the end, they're fucking hard rock bands. And stoner rock, in case you didn't know, most of the time it's hard rock. It's really not metal. Stoner rock is hard rock, and it's just been rebranded. And in some ways, I fucking hate the term, and we all do, you know. But between three of us, we go stoner rock. And we go, yeah. Other people, they'll say that to us to kind of try to make us feel bad.
It's a bad. It's not a greatest name to market that kind of sound. Let's put it that way. Yeah, it's not.
Exactly.
But how do you get rid of it? How do you change it? That's why we try to say heavy rock all the time. That's what I try. So I don't say stoner rock. I try to say heavy rock. You know,
one of the big reasons earlier when you asked me about what kind of music you can expect from this next record, we are trying. We're not trying to get away from the stoner rock label. We just know that our music is not
stoner rock. Yeah,
stoner. It all is where it's just a big wide umbrella, but it's heavy rock and roll. It's heavy rock and roll.
So
because that's what stoner rock is.
Exactly.
It's comical. It's comical
with some blues undertones.
Yep.
It's so comical when someone says that so dismissively, and I'm like, okay, what do you mean stoner rock? And I'll just stop. I'll get all serious. Like, tell me, like, what do you mean? Like, what does that sound like? Who are you referring to? And, you know, they think they're smart because they come up with a label. A lot of people think they're a lot smarter than they really are. You found that out over these last 3 or 4 years, particularly COVID times, as you have a lot more time to yourself and a lot more time to see people and how they react and think. You find out a lot of people that you thought were smart, they're not as smart. They think they are because they stereotype and box things in and all that. I'm a little more critical thinker, I guess. But when you say that stoner rock thing and you go, well, what is that exactly? Well, you know. I go, I'm not asking if I knew.
Yeah.
Black Sabbath. I'm like, I mean, Black Sabbath. So Planet Caravan sounds the same as Supernaut. Paranoid sounds the same as Iron Man. I mean,
nope.
What are you like? Like literally, Black Sabbath is so different than what people typicalize Black Sabbath that it's an ignorant thing to begin with. Just to say that
from album to album and sometimes song to song, you know.
Yeah. For musicians, they're like, well, it's the drop, blah, 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 blah.
Yeah.
They'll talk about some chord and this.
The tuning.
Like, okay. Yeah. But for, 7 out of 10 of us, we're not musicians. So that shit doesn't matter. We're not the insider going, oh, man, they're just doing this again. You know what I mean?
I'll tell you from my angle, the stoner rock moniker, the only reason why it gets a negative connotation to me is because, my day job is I'm a teacher.
Yes, you can smoke weed.
And all of a sudden the band is getting a little name for itself.
True.
And I'll have people go
search on the internet. You're on the stoner rock?
Be like, Ryan, it says Hiders of Queen is American stoner rock.
Man.
What is that? I'm like, I don't know.
Yeah,
It's a genre that we just got lumped into, because you kind of have to do that. It's just part of it. I have no problem with any of it. And you start getting into that aspect. And there's people, like you said, John, the people that don't know are almost unwilling to learn or see past the word stuff.
Yeah. They feel like they're relieved by just saying that. So they don't have to think about it anymore.
Right.
They don't have to consider it. They don't have to, it makes life easier.
Go back to my Instagram feed, the other stuff. You don't have to worry about thinking about that anymore.
I have a couple friends that were over not too long ago to my place that I'll do like a little happy hour, like a little pregame, as I call it, before going over to Count's Vamp for a show. And I have a balcony that overlooks, part of the city. And these two were very insistent, guy and a girl, that, there's just not that good of music being made anymore. And I just can't get into it. And I tell them, like, you can't get into what they keep giving you. And I'm like, if you heard the stuff that I'm in tune with, I think you'd think different. And sometimes like, well, why isn't it, played more then? Why don't people know about it?
That's what it is. Most people are used to being spoon-fed it, you know what I mean? Their whole lives. They're not used to like us.
Validation.
They're enthusiasts. Yeah, they're enthusiasts that to the point where they're just going to keep going out and searching. They want it, maybe new music, but they want it sort of given it to them because they're used to the radio, used to MTV back in the day or whatever it may be. And so,
and I think they want it validated. They don't want it just from dude.
Yeah.
Some dude, thinks it's good. Doesn't mean I have to think it's good. I know I go through that. I mean, literally as a promoter, part of the reason why I don't do a lot of shows there anymore is there's a certain aspect that's just grinding that, you tell people about it and they're like, who the fuck are these bands? I'm like, listen, they're good. You got to trust me. I don't bring bad news. Yeah. Okay. And you start feeling dissed all the time. And, you try to just get people that like rock and roll to go to shows, and they just won't do it a lot of times. Sometimes you get people involved. Once you get them to shows, they go, oh, okay, that was fucking good.
Mm-hmm.
All right, cool. But other times they're like, just because some dude tells me they're good doesn't mean anything, because we're programmed to be validated by, like you said, Matt, MTV or the radio.
Or now by the amount of likes or shares, or
followers,
listens, and followers. That's what validates now. Because hell, I'll have kids my students will Google me, and they'll be like, "Oh, you're in a band," and no matter what, they're gonna think that's cool. My band could suck, and they're like, "Oh, my teacher's in a band," But, but then I see them right away, like, "Oh, it's only got 10,000 views." Well, I can
exactly.
Yeah. I'm like, that's fucking 10,000 views. That's
a lot of views. That's a lot of views.
It's up and coming. Sorry.
It's not over 100K.
It's a struggle, man. It's a fucking struggle. Even people, in my age group, they look at it and people that are in their, let's say 40s and 50s, particularly mid 40s to mid 50s, we're really lucky. And I think, what I talk about that a lot is I feel so fortunate to be a little kid in the 70s, to be a teenager in the 80s when metal was king. I mean, literally, it was on MTV all over. MTV helped fuel it, loved it. Record labels got more behind it. MTV was great until it was called racist. And then it was like, oh, fuck. Everything had to change. And then they started getting fucking pussy metal instead. All the hair metal started kicking in. And when I went to college, which was in the late 80s, guess what band I listened to the most of any was REM.
There you go.
Yeah, I switched to alternative rock.
That's when I was listening to them at that same time. I was just younger. Obviously.
But you listened to some of that other REM later on. But the early REM, which was that mid-late 80s stuff, if you ever, Eponymous, which is a great section.
That was the first record, I think, Eponymous.
No, what that was a almost greatest hits of those first.
Oh, that's right.
3 or 4 albums. Yeah,
Out of Time, and it was
that's all right.
Second record, and
this is like literally,
Well, yeah, early REM, they were a college band. They got huge on college radio. Yeah.
But college radio turned into alternative
It
rock.
did, yeah. Exactly.
Alternative rock turned into 120 minutes and alt nation,
Absolutely.
all this other stuff, and it got things on my side.
Exactly.
And so the 90s were the last great rock generation to me.
Yeah.
Because we had everything. Like grunge was kicking, Tool, Rage Against the Machine, Caius, Helmet. Yeah, those, but then you had just regular good bands like Toadies, Gin Blossoms, which I know I said Gin Blossoms, Matthew Sweet, Urge Overkill.
But I listened to the Gin Blossoms back at Soul Asylum, all those bands back in the day, like I was big in the 90s. That was what you listened to,
But it was actually rock and roll on the radio where you could actually hear new music on the radio.
Yeah.
At a new rock station. Now new rock stations, they just pepper in whatever the management company or record labels have put together, along with the radio promoter person who gets paid thousands of dollars to work with these programmers. Yeah, I know all the inside goods, guys. I know bands who do this, and it's all a fix. It's nothing to do with how good your music is, other than
started with that whole
spend the money. Crap. Yeah, to spend money. It's all payola. It's still payola to this minute more than ever possible.
Oh, I know. I literally got hit up the other day. Hey, I really like your music. I'm like, oh, thank you. And man, why are you guys not bigger? I'm like, oh, working on it, blah, blah, blah. I was like, hey, well, I have a radio station out here and I want to play you guys. I'm like, oh, it's so cool, man. It's rad. Can you send me a track? Yeah, here's the Spotify link. That's so cool. And it went on for like 2 days. And then it was like, okay, so it's $60 to have your song played for a day. It's $100 for that. Give me all these levels. I'm like, what? No, man. No.
What kind of was it a regular FM station?
Yep.
Huh.
FM
independent,
station.
probably an independent because
out of Connecticut somewhere. I've never heard of it.
Yeah, so, it's probably an independent station because the other ones are owned by just like 2 companies primarily, maybe a third sometimes. And they now have just regional programmers. So literally there's less people for the radio promoters, that are doing the payola. They literally could just contact these regional guys and, transactions are put in front of them to make sure they like them. And, they give them a little menu of a few of them. And then next thing you know, it's getting played some, at off hours a little bit. And it just works its way through. I've watched literally a band go from this to this to this. I was even the guy who had to go kind of do the outreach to the DJs or the programmers to talk to them about it a little bit. And, I love getting experiences like that. I didn't get paid jack shit hardly at all, like $100 a week. Man, it gives you a real perspective on this whole thing. And you and me, Ryan, and Matt, we know our labels are never doing anything like that. They're never taking a risk. They're never putting money out for their bands like that. Small Stone did something really good for a while, though. Small Stone had a music manager that died, and he got shit on TV shows and stuff, and
TV and everything.
Sasquatch told me about that. They have all their stuff on there.
Freedom Hawk was even on some stuff too.
But man, on the last episode I watched when y'all had Riggs on, he made an amazing point that I was like, he put it in like words that made so much sense, and he talked about how like when he was a kid, when I was a kid, it was all about getting that record contract. It was about getting that record contract because you had it. Now you're set. It's not that kind of. There's still record contracts, but they don't mean what they used to be. So that kind of went away. So it's you're no longer playing for that anymore. You're literally playing for the love of it, and that's why I feel like the bands that are around that are working are good because they love it. They're not writing. There's really no point for us to write a song like, hey, I'm going to try to write a hit.
Exactly.
There's no point in that anymore, really. It's kind of gone. It's all kind of made in a factory right now, pretty much.
Pretty much
the hits. And so he put it in an interesting way where that's kind of gone, and now you're doing it for the love of it and for the community, and you're kind of playing for each other. And I think with vibes that are good like that, something good is going to come out of that. And
I think it has.
It's definitely if I've reached my pinnacle and I just did a 6-week tour in places I would have never thought I'd see in the world, then that's awesome.
So be it. Yeah, sure.
I'm totally okay with that. But hopefully the bands behind us, get to do something bigger and better and whatnot. And so that's all we're trying to do is help that.
Speaking of that, what are some bands? I know we've been on here a while with you, but what are some bands you're really, really digging nowadays that maybe are up and coming or whatnot?
Well, I mentioned Rickshaw Billy's Burger Patrol earlier. They're so rad because it's unusual to find a band, I feel like now, that fits our quote unquote genre that we've been talking about, Umbrella, but is so unique. They don't sound like, you can find like a little bit of Weezer, a little bit of Fu Manchu.
They're like Weezer on fucking an 8-ball or something.
It's Weezer with an 8-string fucking guitar.
There you go.
And an 8-ball. It was like,
it's nuts. It's nuts.
It is. It really is.
It's nuts. But there's a band in Germany that I'm 99% sure you're already aware of, John. They're called Plain Drifter. So that record is so good. And I can't stop listening to it. And we've got a chance to play with them 3 times now because I reached out to them, like, hey, let's play a show. And I got a chance to hear them. We played a show with them in this real small German town. And I got to hear them play like 3 new songs that they're doing. And I was blown away. It's I don't want to call it a poor man's Elder. Because that's not giving it the credit it deserves. But
I hear you.
It's very much in the Elder vein, but with Matt, like really cool vocals.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so, like Matt, what I would say is they fall under the new wave of heavy psych.
Okay,
I agree.
Fully. Like Weed Pecker's in there as well. You know,
Weed Pecker, sure, I know them,
But Plain Drifter really does. It's like that mix of Elder and King Buffalo. Something's going on there. Totally big fan of that album. Was a top 50 for me. That's very cool. Yeah, it's a nice mention there, Ryan. I like that.
Nice. Very good.
What else?
Galpa.
Nice.
Only because I saw them live when we played with them in Sweden, and I was like, holy shit, who is this? It's Bjork with sounding vocals with heavy riffs, but not just that, they're incredible musicians. They have really good dynamics in their music, and it's very well written. So I was very impressed with them. And here we're touching like different parts of the world right now. You know, I've given you an Austin band, I'm giving you a German band, and now like a Swedish band. But another band that I got to see that in Italy, a Mr. Bison. I was blown away by those guys.
You had him, John, right?
Blown away by those guys.
That is
I was already a fan of them. You know,
great band.
Here you go.
Planet Desert Rock
already
Weekend
a fan
alumni.
of them. I've seen them live.
So good.
It's super cool band. And then of course, there's bands that I really hope they're honing it in. Like I know you've seen Good Eye because they're an Austin band that I've had at RIPPLEFest twice. They're going to be here again. Well, I guess they did the pre-party the first year. They played last year. They're going to play again this year. They've written some new music that I've had a chance to hear. They're trying to get their bass player was Aaron from Rickshaw Billy's Burger Patrol, but they're touring like crazy now, so they're making a move. But they're a band that I think that is so unique as well that I think is really, really good that people need to hear. If they just hear it, they would like it.
Yeah.
Nice. Fantastic. Fantastic.
They are good.
Awesome.
And you know, the scene is so dynamic. Villagers of Ioannina City, what an unbelievable experience. What they are. I would love to get them over here. It's just so expensive, and no one's rich here.
Very good dynamic band.
I mean, it really phenomenal. Shows you can, in our scene, you can go from that to all the way over to Witch Skull.
Yeah.
You know, which is stoner metal, which appeals to metalheads and appeals to stoner rock people, heavy rock people. I just think our scene has everything for everyone. If you're rock, and that's why this is all I listen to. Like I listen to 0 FM, and Sirius XM is missing the boat, or whatever they want to call themselves, missing the boat by not having a channel that has all this stuff on it. Like it's
think about how much music they could have on it.
Yeah, and it'd be cheaper for them to do it, even licensing and everything else. And so it's really a big heavy rock is a world thing. And it's in a great state as far as artistry is concerned. much to many people's dismay, or other people, they're like, everything's mediocre, everything sucks, nothing's like this. Everything's about attitude. That's the way I look at it. And I look at it in the way his music is good for you. Real good for you.
Absolutely, man.
So before we wrap it up, guys, I want to just Ryan, talk real quick about the Brewery and Dive Tour Part 1. I know we talked about this before we started, man. I think it's a great concept. Go ahead. You obviously toured with the split guys you did with their Blue Heron, as you've been talking about before. So go ahead and talk about this tour.
Yeah, this is an idea I had for a while that I'm a beer hound. I have what's called a cicerone, which is like the equivalency of a sommelier to wine, but for beer. And I've always been kind of a beer hound. I love trying new beers and things. And I thought it'd be cool a long time ago to play a show at breweries just because I like the beer. And then lo and behold, we do this tour with Sasquatch where we play at 3 different breweries, and they paid us better, they fed us better, and they gave us a lot more beer than a few drink tickets. And I'm like, okay, all right, okay, this is definitely something we need to do. And it's a little difficult to book because not every brewery in every city plays this kind of music, and they're not always open 7 days a week and with hours that accommodate or would have stages. So it became Brewery and Dive Tour to kind of fill the gaps. And the idea is we're going to film a documentary. That's why it's called Tour Part 1. We'll do as many parts as we can over the next few years. We're going to film a documentary of us going to the breweries. Because even in the towns even the shows we don't play a brewery, like we're going to, I've already organized like going to 1 or 2 breweries to taste the beer, tour it, assess the beer, talk about, what's our favorites, what we like, what we don't like, interview some of the people, show some live footage, all that kind of stuff. I think there's definitely in this genre, I know we keep using the word genre, but in our scene, it's a niche scene where people that like our music for the most part like beer. And I think that there's definitely going to be an audience for this. I know it was something that I'd be like, I'd watch that. So I'm into it. And I'm really excited about doing it. We kept it short. I mean, 2 weeks is not short for some people, but it'll be like a good kind of test run of how this works. But we have already in our heads, I've kind of mapped out doing it to the Midwest, doing it to the West Coast, doing it up East, and like doing it to the Gulf Coast. And, that's part 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, whatever that we could have. And it's like a little mini series of episodes of us doing this. And so I'm really excited about it. I love getting on the road so I can get on the stage again and lose myself on stage, but it'll be a little easier to lose myself with some good beer too, I think. So it'll be fun.
Oh yeah. So are you an IPA guy, or what's your?
So I love crushers and stouts. Crushers being like your lagers, your pilsners, your kolsch's. I do like a good ale. I'm a stout guy. I love a good stout. So we're trying to. I really have learned to appreciate IPAs. I've never really I don't like the bitter. I always felt like I used to make a joke that which is true, but that 80% of your taste bud receptors are bitter. And do you guys happen to know why 80% of your taste buds are bitter receptors?
I don't know.
Because everything in nature that is poisonous is bitter. And so I think that we've actually inherently learned that. That doesn't mean you shouldn't drink beer that's hoppy, but it's a bitter, the IBU, the bitter receptor. Yeah. I've started to appreciate it because when you start doing this, you have to understand like, oh, that's a West Coast Mosaic hop, or that's a Saaz hop or whatever, like you respect what people are doing. Sure. But I also work at a brewery at times, and the old adage is if they screwed up the beer, like it didn't come out right, just throw a shit ton of hops in it and people call it an IPA and people will drink it. It is true, man. It is true. It's what happens. But so I like good, clean, crisp lager, and then I also like some good heavy stouts. So, but I do appreciate the IPA to answer that question.
Cool. Very cool.
I just bought a 12-pack of Leinenkugel's Summer Shandy.
Oh yeah, I've had that.
God, that is a good summer beer.
Midwestern.
That's a
beer.
good river beer. We like drink that when sitting on the river.
Oh man, it's just so crisp. It's so good for a hot summer. I went to try to get some before the 4th of July weekend, and they were out. I'm like,
Oh, yeah.
what? But today I went to the grocery store and got it. I'm like, all right, yeah. I don't know what it is. I like the crisp, more Pilsner kind of styles. But I've opened up my varieties a little bit more as the beer thing has been happening. You know,
Well, one of my goals. One of my goals in the documentary is I'll teach you about all different kinds of beers. That's part of it.
There you go. I'll have to figure out and find if there's ever a brewer around here that would have enough room for a band. I'll have to look around. Arts District has a couple things.
Add Vegas to it. But even if we don't play an actual brewery, you know, like we're playing in some towns, like let's say we played a show in Vegas, a dive bar, we would hit the brewery during the day, try it out, whatever, and then try to get one of my, you know, light bulb ideas too is that, hey, we're playing your town, we're doing a brewery tour. Do you want to do a tap takeover? And we get free beer, but do a tap takeover to have your beer there and make the documentary. So there's a bunch of marketing ideas that can work with this. So
we'll talk offline. There could be some stuff we could do here in Vegas.
Right
you never know.
Right
I think.
Fantastic. All right.
Absolutely.
Awesome.
Thanks, Ryan, for coming in and everything.
Yeah.
Dude, I love it. I love y'all's show. And so I'm watching it a lot. John always sends me the links, and I keep doing that because I keep watching it. And I appreciate all y'all do for the involved in it, man. So I really thank y'all a lot.
Yeah.